Hi everybody, welcome to Mechanical Advantage Garage. I'm Kerry, and today we're going to do some Harley stuff. Some of you may remember my 1974 1000cc Harley Davidson Sportster, affectionately called the Ironhead. It's a fun bike, and you know, let me give you a tour. So this is my 1974 Harley Davidson Ironhead Sportster, affectionately known as Bad Luck. Thank you, Ohio BMV, for giving me that license plate. Not much is known about the history of this bike. I got it from a friend of mine who bought it from somebody on Long Island, and it burned up on the way home. It was wired with lamp cord, brown lamp cord from a hardware store. And so that caught fire. It didn't damage any of the hard parts. They were able to put it out pretty quick, but he was very sick of it pretty quickly. So he traded me for another running motorcycle, and I just sort of ruined it from there. Actually, I made it better. It's patterned after an old woods trial and hill climber. Just because you don't see Sportsters that used to do that stuff anymore, but they absolutely used to do that stuff. And it's got some cool parts on it. It's got the XLH aluminum rims, front and rear, 18-inch rear, 19-inch front. The points cover here is from Arlen Ness from the 70s. It was at a friend's shop forever, and I bought it. It's got a Fairbanks Morse magneto. Actually a Morris mag is set up for a Sportster, but they were originally made by Fairbanks Morse for tractors. Red Wing Hammerhead shocks. Just cool, nice NOS shocks that I found and liked the look of and decided to use. And this wild kind of marbleized paint job that I did in a trash can with my father. Giant, what we call ejection seat springs right here. Just big beehive springs. And a 1932 Ford glass taillight. So, yeah. The problem with this bike, and there's a lot of problems with it. It runs good, but they always said, never run a magneto with an electric start because you'll burn up the Bendexes, and they have not been wrong. I've put 2 in this bike since I've owned it, and the reason is because Harleys really like their timing to be set perfect on the electric start models, and if you don't have it perfect, it will spit back and it will destroy a Bendex. But one of the bigger problems I have with this bike, it does run. I do ride it. I was just riding it a minute ago. One of the bigger problems I have is this thing right here, this fuel tank. As cool as it looks, and it does look cool, this fuel tank right here has no range. It is 2.2 gallons. It is an original Ironhead tank. And actually, I think there's a dent underneath all that paintwork that I wasn't able to fully get out that may have reduced it to 2.1 gallons or 2 gallons even. So, yeah. So, as much as I love this bike here, and I do kind of love it, it is fun to ride. It does dumb things. I have taken it off-road, mostly sand and beaches and fire roads. It's not really a MX bike. You can't jump it. I mean, you could jump it once. Maybe you couldn't land it. I don't know. As fun as it is, I can't go anywhere on it. It has, at best, on a good day, 80 miles to a tank. Because figure an Ironhead Sportster, if you're not like at 80 miles an hour on the highway, is getting about 39-40 miles per gallon. That's, talking with other Ironhead owners, it seems to be about what they get. I don't have a speedometer on here, so I can't track the mileage, so it always feels like less, because every time I take this bike out, I have to put gas in it. So we're going to look at some solutions. for that problem of me not being able to ride this thing any kind of distance. Yeah, that's the other thing too. I'd love to be able to take it to a show in Dayton, right? But I'd have to make 2 gas stops on the way and 2 gas stops on the way back. What fun is that, you know? Or I'd love to take it to Cleveland and forget it. That'd be, yeah. All right, so what am I going to do about it? Well, one of the bigger issues with this is how Harley designed these bikes. And I'll show you right here. See this right here? Where is it? There it is. That right there. That is both a brake drum and a sprocket, which means that you can't change the sprocket size on these bikes. You are stuck with the gear ratio that you have. Maybe you can go up 1 tooth or down 1 tooth in the front sprocket, but it's not really advisable with these, and there isn't a lot of clearance to go up a tooth. So you can go faster, you can go down a tooth, but you can't go slower, you know, and get more mileage or lower RPMs on the highway or better fuel economy. So you're kind of locked into gear ratios and all that. Now there's some things I can do with the carburetor, tune it up, make it run efficiently, and that's a 2002 Screaming Eagle Sportster Key-in carb. It is not a Key-in CV carb. It is a direct pull throttle. So it's neat, but it runs good. It's tuned well. This bike starts when I need it to. I could start it right now. I'd have to put the phone down so you wouldn't see it, but whatever. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some options for future videos about what I'm going to do about my fuel capacity problem. And we're going to get a history lesson in Harley fuel tanks. So what am I going to do about my fuel capacity issue with this bike? Well, I have some options here, and we're going to get a lesson on old Harley fuel tanks. Now, I actually have them in order of capacity from smallest to largest. This being 2.8 or 2.9 gallons, all the way up to 4.2. So, yeah, that's going to be the size of it. So let's just jump right in and talk about what these options are, and then we can go fit them to the bike and see how they look. So this first tank here, this is actually not a Harley tank. This is an aftermarket tank. It is called a Wassel Super Banana tank, and these were made in the 60s and then discontinued, and they sort of brought them back. The thing about these is they don't have conventional Harley mounts, right? So they have these tabs right here that would just bolt to the top of your frame. Now, this actually is very similar to how a Japanese bike mounts. A lot of them have mounts that bolt to the back. British ones also bolt through the center, but sometimes they actually go through the center of the tank instead of at the ends of the tank. But there's all sorts of different ways. So, so how are you going to mount this without destroying that? Well, I have something for that. This is an aftermarket mounting kit. This is sold by Lowbrow Customs. These are actually for a later Ironhead, but what's interesting about these bikes is they didn't change that much. So these are supposed to fit, I think it's 84 to 2004, so the Ironhead Evos all the way up. But what changed about the Ironheads from 57 to 78, and then 79 being a one-off year, and then 80 through 86, is the front mount is in the same location, but they plated over it. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So the mount actually moves a little bit further out. The rear mount actually moves forward underneath the tank. So there's no way to use the rear mount, but fortunately we have this, and it has actually 2 different locations. I don't know if you can see one here and one here, so we can sort of play with this and see where we're going to mount it on the bike. So yeah, these are not a bolt-in solution, but it's not a weld solution. There's going to be some fabrication, but it's probably just a lot of trimming and repainting and stuff, which is a shame because these are actually really finished quite nicely. I don't know that this was all that hard to make. It's just welded nuts to, I mean, making the piece itself is probably difficult, but then they just welded nuts to the bottom of it. So yeah, it's a nice piece. The Super Banana is let's get that out of the frame. The Super Banana is a nice tank to have. The thing I love about it is that it's not a traditional like teardrop Harley shape. This is more European looking, if that makes sense. It's also sort of similar to what they used for flat track in the late 60s and early 70s with first the iron XR 750s and then later the actual XR 750 aluminum head and aluminum barrel bikes. So yeah, so that's option number one. And there are some other options in the aftermarket too. You can get tanks that will literally just bolt onto a 57 or 78 Ironhead that are 5 gallons and they're wide and they're long and they have dashes in them like an older Harley. But that's the thing, is that they look like big twin tanks, and I don't really want to put something that looks like a big twin tank on this because I kind of like it, you know, being small and light and nimble and ready to attack at any moment. So yeah, that's option one right there. Oh, something else that's cool I forgot to mention is, by the way, this takes the stock Harley petcock, because this is just a 3/8 NPT bung, which is what all Harleys use. There is one challenge though to this, and that is the fuel petcock is on the left side of the tank. You see here I'm holding the tank. This is the left side of the tank. Here is the fuel petcock, and traditionally on Ironheads the fuel is on the right. So, because the carburetor is on the right. Not a big deal though to run a fuel line over to the other side. They did it for years. Okay, so that's the Wassel tank. Next up, this is the 3.2-ish gallon, what they call these super glide tanks. And actually this one is a super glide tank. But these were also used on a variety of Harley bikes. Actually, this tank is a factory Harley tank, and it has a really interesting history. So let me just pick this up now. This shape, which is very similar to the Wassel tank, by the way, but you know, quite a bit larger when you look at it. So this shape was first introduced in the early 1960s and appeared on the Aramaki sourced Harley Sprint 350s, right? So this was the long-range tank for a Harley Sprint 350. And what made them special is, I believe it was on this side, they had a huge cutout right here. And so the carburetor could clear, because the way the carburetor came up straight and then the air filter. So they had a huge cutout and a welded-in recess here for the Sprint tanks, right? And so they used those from about, I want to say 60, 61, all the way through the first revision of the Sprint, which I think was 1971, 72. But this showed up on the 72 Super Glide. And this particular tank, in its beautiful blue color, and it is actually in really good shape. I'm not going to repaint this. I thought I was going to repaint it to match the sort of black and gold oil slick paint job that I have on the bike, but I've decided I'm going to find another fender and see if I can color match this, because I just really like this color. But yeah, so this tank appeared on Super Glides through the 80s, and then was also on the Ironhead as a stock bolt-on tank from, I want to say, 1979 or 1980. No, I'm sorry. It's from 1980 through 83, 82 or 83 that they used this tank, and they on a model they called the Sportster Roadster, right? So the base Sportster, the XLCH or whatever it is, they would get still that 2.2 gallon tank, but if you bought a Sportster Roadster, you got this, right? Now the mounting on this is kind of unusual. So this has the Super Glide mount. You can tell the Super Glide mount because it has this horse collar mount here with this cutout, and there's a little bushing that sits in there, and that's how it mounts. The Ironhead version of this tank, these go all the way to the top, and it's just a hole through right here. So this may not mount to the Ironhead directly without some work, you know, a little bit of work. But what else is cool about it is it has a little horse collar rubber dampener that fits in the tunnel that goes around the backbone of the frame, and it keeps the tank from vibrating. One of the other annoyances with this Ironhead is somebody at some point, and it wasn't me, I think it was a shop I had work on this bike once, lost the rubber dampeners for the tank in the front, and they just put metal spacers in there to bolt the tank up, and it rattles. It makes a noise. Like, you can hear a tinny noise on this bike when you're riding it, and it's just the tank rattling against its spacers. So I should be able to set this up. It's going to take a little bit of work, but not too much. Another issue with it is the petcock's also on the left side. Now, I did mention that these were stock on Ironheads, and yes, the Sportster Roadster tank was slightly different, but it still had the mount on the left side for the fuel petcock. They just ran a different outlet that allowed it to go through the V of the engine and over to the other side in the carburetor. This one has a straight down this one actually has a really nice petcock on it. I might actually be able to reuse this. I haven't tried yet. But this is a straight down outlet. I don't know if you can see that here, but the fuel nipple is straight down. They do sell these where they do come out the side too. I might have to source one of the ones that comes out the side, because I think the one on my bike is also a straight down fuel nipple. The other thing that's nice is these use the standard Harley bayonet style caps that they use from 57 all the way through mid 80s, I think. So I can actually take the cap off this. It goes right on my stock Ironhead tank. Actually, let me talk about that for a second, because one of the reasons why one of the other reasons why I'm looking forward to changing tanks is I get to change cap styles, because this is the cap that's on my Ironhead. I didn't get a fuel cap with that tank when I bought it, and so I got this at a swap meet. It was a replacement, but it's, you know, it was brand new, but it's not a great design if you look inside when you compare it to how Harley did the actual stock bayonet cap. Okay, so this is even though this is pressed steel, it's much deeper. There's more engagement. It seals tighter. This is just like what do you call it? It's a flat piece of plate steel, and I constantly have to bend these tangs down to get this thing to seal up against the seal. The seal inside here is good, and when I finally do get it to seal, it seals nice. But this just is much stronger. So I'm excited about that I get to get rid of this cap here. Which is another fun fact about it. This is the small cap for small Harley tanks. There is a large cap, which we'll talk about in a second. So, yeah. Now, at some point I may have mentioned that Ironheads came in a variety of tanks. I think there were 6 in total, and I have 4 of the styles that they came with here. I have what they call the peanut tank, the 2.2 gallon. I have the Sportster Roadster tank, and then I have this tank here, which is really kind of interesting. This is the 1961 through 1969 XLH extended range tank. This is what they call in Harley enthusiast circles as a turtle tank. Okay, and let's just pick this up here. This is actually a really nice tank. Despite the way it looks, I sandblasted this a long time ago, so it has a little bit of flash rust on it. And it has one problem right here in that somebody ripped the emblems off of it at one point and it created a little pinhole right here at the top. But otherwise, this is a very solid tank, and it is quite large, but it also sits very low on the frame of these bikes. What makes this one a challenge to mount, and we'll talk about it when we actually go and try to mount it up, is the front mounts here. Harley changed the neck casting of these bikes, I think in 72 or 73, and it's a thicker neck casting. So where they put these mounts doesn't line up with the original Harley mounts that are on the 74 that I have back there. It's just slightly higher because the thicker neck casting picks the front end of this up to the point where this won't line up. So I'll have to figure out a solution for that. But yeah, part of the reason why it sits so low is look how high the mounts are and look how close the top of the tunnel is. Although it is a very, very deep tunnel, very deep. Here you can see, since this is an early Ironhead tank, the petcock is on the right side here, where it should be. This one doesn't have a petcock in it, it just has a fuel filler in it. Something else that's interesting is early Sportster tanks, Ironhead tanks, have a fuel crossover that actually goes through the neck of the bike. And that's just to help balance fuel from left to right on these bikes. So you're always able to get all of the fuel out of it. This has the longest mounting tabs of all in the back. These actually do line up pretty well with some of the mounts on my 74. It's just that front mount issue where the neck casting is thick enough that it makes it hard to mount this. These are actually really cool looking tanks though. You can see how sort of squat they are. This one's got a few dents and stuff that I got to take out too. But overall, neat tank, and it's a 4-gallon tank. So again, assuming 40 gallons on my Ironhead here, 40 miles per gallon, I'm sorry, not 40 gallons. Assuming 40 miles per gallon on my Ironhead, I'm looking at about 160. Is that right? 4 times 4 is 16, yeah, 160. Wait, so how did I come up with 150 feet of loss? 80, I had 0.8, so it's 40. So 40 would have been 120. Yeah, you know what, the loss was only about 100-mile range. Well, which is where you kind of want to be. You want to be 100 miles and that's it. But, so yeah, so we're at 160 range here. And this would have been 125-ish, 130 at most. Okay, so range anxiety discussions abound with these. But yeah, these are cool tanks. They especially look great with not the seat that I have on it, which is a KR replica seat, solo saddle. But they look great with the Airmaki 60 seat. That looks kind of like a BSA seat. Actually, I have one. Let me go grab it. So this here is, this giant marshmallow looking thing, is my 1960s Giuliari made seat for Harley Davidsons and Airmakis. This one's actually set up for an Airmaki Sprint, and it's NOS. It's never been mounted to a bike. It's never been bolted down, ridden on. It's still in its plastic. I got this actually for a really cheap price, and I feel kind of bad that I'm going to cut it up to make it fit, because one of the problems here is that the mounts for it, they're sprint mounts, so they're in the wrong place for an Ironhead. And so I'm going to have to cut these off and figure out how to, this one I can actually just move up to here. But I'll have to find like other mounts to be able to mount this. But this is the shape, this is the pan, and this is the one that goes best with the turtle tank, because it has a real 60s kind of look to it, you know? Kind of neat. So let's just put that out of frame here. Oh, and see, it has like a, I don't know if you can see this, it has a kind of a ducktail right here that sort of pokes up. Looks kind of like a BSA or an early Ducati seat. Really kind of nice. So yeah, so far, those are the tanks. And this is the last tank we're going to talk about here. Let me just pick up this bad boy. Okay, Some of you may have seen this in some of my earlier videos if you're a fan of the channel. This is a 1957 to 1960 XLH touring tank. And this is about 4.1 or 4.2 gallons, right? It's the biggest factory tank that came on a Ironhead Sportster. This one actually, if you can tell, there's a round indentation here. It doesn't have like the pinched one. So this one would be for a 57 or 58. I thought this was a 59 tank originally, but in stripping it off, I think I found that it's a 57 or 58 tank because the indentation for the badge is different. But this is kind of a cool tank. It's a heavy piece. Yeah, I had started to sandblast this one too. This one's interesting in that it has fuel outlet mounts on both the left. Both the left and the right. So I can actually mount the stock Sportster location here. I don't know if they use this on any other Harleys. I don't think they did. But this has a really interesting aftermarket 1950s fuel tap on it. This is not, I don't think this is a factory Harley tap. But let me get in close so you can see it. You know, it's just a real cool piece because it has, you know, these dual outlets that turn and they have indents on the outside. Really kind of neat. They're one's reserve, one's regular fuel. So that's how you get it. This one actually also has been modified in here. I don't know if you can see it. This is the stock factory mount. Somebody mounted this to a later Ironhead and made a hole for the mounting here. So that's why I thought this would be a fun thing to use. The rear mounts didn't change. So these will all mount up stock to an Ironhead. The problem with this tank is it needs a lot of work. This one was damaged a lot, probably in the 1950s or 60s because it has brazing repairs on it. These are all bronze rod welded. Somebody took basically brazing. They took a piece of bronze rod and they melted it to fill holes in it. This tank also has so many holes. If you look inside it, it looks like a starlit sky because there's just so many pinholes in it everywhere. It's really terrible. This one's going to take a lot of work. I don't want to say I got ripped off on this tank. I bought this tank sight unseen from someone on the internet, thinking that like how bad could it be? Because it was hanging on his wall and it was painted red. It looked nice, and I thought, oh, there's probably a chance it could be used, right? And then I stripped it down, and let me show you how many holes are in this thing right here. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, it's like that all over the tank. So I have a couple of ideas on how to fix this. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll figure it out. I'm going to try and do it without welding, because I think if I had to pay a welder to fix this, first of all, I think the metal's too thin. You know, for someone to just put a bead on top of it, I think they'd ruin it. But also, there's big dents in this too. Like, this is pretty much a worthless tank. So I'm going to try and experiment with it and see if I can get it to fit the Ironhead. So, which one am I going to go with? The answer is all of them, actually. I like having versatility. I like setting my bike up different ways. Those of you who know me with my CB750 in real life, I have several body sets and I will switch them to change the color and change the paint scheme because it's real easy. You just take the tank off, put the tank on, you take the side covers off, put the side cover on. Same thing with this. You know, this one I'm going to try and find a fender to paint match this blue color, and I'm going to change the color of my Harley to blue when I use this tank. This one I'm going to try and fix as best I can, and I'm probably going to paint match it to this, but I'm going to match it with the Giuliari seat that I showed you before for longer rides, right? This I think will be my get around town tank. It'll probably be on the bike the most because it'll work. If it looks good, it'll work good with my solo saddle. And that one I will also paint like the black and gold. And this one, we're going to try and see if we can even make this thing usable again because it's so destroyed. And if we can't, it's going to become a wall hanger. And that one is definitely becoming a wall hanger for a couple of reasons. One is when I painted it, I used some very old clear that turns out not to be 2K clear. And because of that, the modern ethanol fuels have sort of eaten away at the clear coat on the top of the tank. On top of that, my father and I did the paint job on that bike, and I'm kind of sentimentally attached to that paint job. He's still alive. I'm not, you know, I could go to his house and repaint it with him, although he lives like hundreds of miles away. But yeah, this bike was the only bike he and I ever actually worked together on, so I'm very sentimental about certain things and certain projects that we did, and I'd like to preserve them, and that tank is one of those things that I'd like to preserve, and it's deteriorating. So it's going on the wall until either he and I paint it again, or you know, I decide I want to ride with it. So yeah, so let's fit these up and see how they look on the bike, and hopefully we'll get a good idea of how this stuff is gonna shake out. So here we have the Wassel tank sort of just sitting on the bike at the moment. There's going to be a few things that I need to address. One is I got to find a way to make this mount come lower. Two is I got to find a way to make the rear mount come up more, so that it sits more level, so that the petcock itself, which it is going to be its own challenge because it's very close to the head here, can exit and then go through the V of the motor to the carb on the other side. So this one's going to be fun to mount, but it's got some challenges. Overall though, let me get out of the way here. I kind of like the way it looks. It looks more Trials Scrambler-ish than I was expecting it to be. But yeah, it's kind of a good look for it. Looks very British looking. So that's option one. Yeah, we'll do a quick walk around of it so you can really see, you know, get a good feel for it from all the angles. Overall, I kind of like this. I don't know if I like it better than the Peanut tank, but I certainly like the way it's set up. So yeah, it's kind of you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a matchless G15 or the Norton P11, you know, desert sled bikes. Here is the Super Glide tank, just sort of sitting in place. One of the first challenges, let me make it down here. One of the first challenges I noticed is that the hole for the pass-through on the bolt is all the way inside, and there's not a lot of room in here for the dampers, the rubbers that hold it in place. This doesn't have as big a petcock issue because the tank is so wide, it's actually completely clear of the motor. So I could just run a fuel line straight through and back. The rear on this is actually the easiest thing to mount because these use a spring clamp that just goes around the backbone. And as I mentioned before, there's a horseshoe collar that sort of sits in here and keeps this thing from rocking back and forth. And I'll actually have it sit up a little bit higher on the engine. So it'll sit about right there. But this is cool. I like this, and I love the color. I just love that old Harley blue color. It's really kind of a micro flake. It's so metallic. But yeah, let's get a walk around. So one thing I do love is I love this color scheme of blue with the gold and red lettering. I just think that's very vintage looking. But I'm really digging this. Let's just zoom out a little bit there. Okay, get a good look from all angles. So it's a nice tank. This actually, I feel like, has more of a flat tracker vibe than I was expecting it to because of the tank. It's a very similar shape to the XR 750 tank, although it's much, much larger. I think the XR 750 tanks are 1.5 gallons. So I actually think this bike would look good in this blue color. I am really kind of loving it. You know, it just has that great look. So here we have the turtle tank, and this is the one that has the largest range to it. This one actually mounts really nicely, except for the front mount here. This front mount here doesn't line up at all because of the change in the neck casting. So this would require a custom mounting solution here, which I'm sure I can figure out, actually. Either changing the tabs and moving them to a new location, or just sort of playing around with it. But otherwise, it fits on here really nicely. Even fits really well with that seat, which I wasn't expecting to. One thing I did notice, though, it is very low. The stock 2.2 gallon tank comes up to about here. This one does not. It sits much, much lower. It's also very, very wide. Looks kind of like a UFO, you know, sitting on top of the bike. But the rear mount actually lines up pretty well. I could put a bolt through that right now and bolt it to this frame, and that would mount it for the rear. Petcock clearance on this side, the petcock's in the stock location, so I have no issues with this whatsoever. It's just figuring out a mount for this front mount, which I'm sure I'll do. So let's get a walk around on this. So this is kind of a nice setup. This one does feel a little more English, or even Japanese, although I feel it looks most like a Vincent tank. So 1950s sort of English, 1960s, which again, it is a product of the 60s in that design and style. It does bother me like how far the handlebars come up from the top of the tank. They really sit kind of tall. But that just might be my aesthetic issue to get over, you know. Overall, I don't hate the way this looks. I really do like it. I don't think there's such a thing as a bad looking Ironhead, but this one's actually really, really pretty. So I think I'm going to enjoy trying to fit this one up. And now we have the long shot, the tank that may not be salvageable, the 57-58 4.2 gallon XLH touring tank. I like it, but there's a few challenges here for this. First off, here, let me get down so you can see me here. These custom front mounts are not going to work at all. There's no way to make this line up. They sit entirely too high. Second thing is the mount here at the back actually shares the bolt hole with the seat mount. So that's going to be a challenge too, to figure out how to get that to work where the seat isn't rubbing the back of the tank the entire time. Now the way that would work on a stock early bike is they would have a plunger seat system in here that would move the seat back another inch or so it wouldn't impact this if you ran a solo saddle. But this is a 74, so they got rid of the plunger system, I think, in late 73. And they replaced the casting here with just this metal bar. And it's terrible, but what am I going to do, you know? But overall, I like the way this looks. It's the right height, you know, it's the right size. I don't seem to have any clearance issues because it was made for an Ironhead. This one is just, it looks ugly because it's damaged, but shape-wise, it's not terrible. You know, I just don't know if we're actually going to be able to save this tank because it's so trashed. We're going to try a few tricks that I learned over the years, tricks that I learned at the radiator shop I was working at 25 years ago, to see if we can get this to seal up. And if I can get it to seal up and hold gas, we'll try it. We'll see what I can do, you know, because this actually does look cool, especially if I can mount a 57, you know, round Sportster emblem, or the one that I love, the 59 to 60 arrow emblem. It's like a round one with an arrow that goes to the front. It says Harley Davidson on the sides of the arrow. It's really kind of a cool one. Look it up. So overall, not terrible. Let's get a walk around on it. So right away, you can feel that this has a presence, this tank. It sticks out both sides very far. petcock location's in the stock spot, so it's not terrible. I think this side actually looks the best, you know. But this does really make it look like a 1950s motorcycle. And still, you know, less Harley-ish, but still Harley-esque, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I don't hate this. I'm kind of curious how comfortable it would be to ride because of how far it sticks out. Your legs could actually hug this tank, which is unusual because they can't do that on the Peanut tank. So yeah, it's rough. We'll see if we can make it happen. But yeah, got my work cut out for me over the winter. So we get to go jump into it now. Just for some fun bonus teaser content, if you made it this far to the end, I grabbed my 1973 Candied Bacchus Olive CB750 tank off the shelf, and just decided to see how it would look if I could fit this up. This one would be a challenge, but it's not as bad as I thought. It's actually the right dimensions, and it's not a terrible shape. Problem is I'd have to find one that wasn't as in nice paint condition, because I don't want to have Honda emblems on my Harley Davidson. I don't want to have Harley Davidson emblems on my Harley Davidson. I kind of like, you know, people guessing. Although I did for a while have this idea of getting the, since it is an AMF bike, getting the AMF bowling pin logo that they used to use for all the pin setting machines, and putting that on just to, you know, just to freak people out who always like to talk about AMF like it was a bad thing for Harley Davidson. It was and it wasn't. It's a whole complicated thing. Whatever. We're not here to debate that history. Get at it in the comments. You know what? You want to debate that history? Get it in the comments. I like this. I think it's kind of neat. I don't think... So the bigger challenge here is I don't think there's fork clearance. All those other tanks came back much quicker in radius and were set further back on this frame. This goes right up to the edge here. So I have a feeling, and we're going to try it and see if I can do it without wrecking the bike, that I will hit the tank before I hit the stop. Yep, and there it is. I'm against the tank, right here. So, before I ruin this, and there it comes off the other mount, let's get a walk around and just get a look for it. Well, it's got a nice look to it. The Honda emblems definitely have to go. Not because I hate Honda. I love those bikes. They're fantastic, the CB750s. You know, all the 70s bikes I own are great. You know, I got two other ones in there in addition to my 75, so I have quite a few. But, yeah, from this angle, I'm kind of digging it, actually. I don't know how to make it work. It's very wide, and the petcock location is going to be a problem. And I'd have to lift it up off the frame because it doesn't clear the carburetor air cleaner on this side. But, yeah, other than that, yeah, I've seen worse, you know. Looks good. Looks good-ish. We'll figure it out. Maybe I have like 5 or 6 of these tanks. Yeah, here, let's just take a quick walk for a second. More bonus content. You get to see the fun zone of motorcycling right now. So I have a 78 CB750, a 71 behind it with a Tracy body, the BMW R80, the Volkswagen bike that's also on my channel, and a Honda Cub that's all original. But as you can see, I have right here a spare Honda tank, and also right here a spare Honda 750 tank. Oh, and by the way, I have flat track tanks up here, a Dunstall 5-gallon tank here. Oh, look, here's another Honda 750 tank. And what's that hiding back here? Well, that's another Honda 750 tank. So I've got quite a few to play with. Yeah, so bonus content. But yeah, look at that. That actually does look really good. So that about does it for part one of this, you know, cavalcade of tanks and tank options. Over the course of the winter, I'm going to figure out how to mount each of these tanks, and probably this seat too, to the bike, and try it out. So that'll be a sort of fun, not really tutorial because I don't do tutorials, infotainment part of my channel. So if you like Ironhead content, you know, subscribe to that. If you like this video, hit like. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. It is a lot of work to make these, and I do them on my phone in my spare time, which I haven't had a lot of lately. So I got more GTO content coming too. I got some Ford truck content coming. But for the most part, I think this is going to be a fun project. And who knows, maybe I'll bring some Ironhead people to my channel, because y'all are fun people to hang out with sometimes. But overall, yeah, now I got to go put this bike back together so I can use it if we get another warm day. And that's about it. So thank you. Hit like, hit subscribe. If you disagree with anything I said in this video, get at me in the comments. If you liked everything in this video, get at me in the comments. If you don't care either way, just say hi in the comments. I read them all. I respond to everyone. So thank you, and I'll see you next video.